Testing 1 2, testing 1 2. This is Amon Asha Renew from AshaRenew.com. There we go. And we're back. We're going to do the Vedic analysis this time, as in the previous video we did the Western analysis. So we're going to keep it even, so that way we get both perspectives here. But before we go in, I'm going to play, of course, some theme music, set the mood, and we'll be right back.
Hey, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, 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 yeah, yeah, hey, got what you need to live life free. No cap, know that what you see ain't what it seems. Tell them haters what's up. Hey, stop throwing shade, step your fucking game up. Hey, hey, we got what you need to live life free. No cap, know that what you see ain't what it seems. Tell them haters what's up. Hey, stop throwing shade, step your fucking game up. Hey, hey, we got what you need to live life free. No cap, know that what you see ain't what it seems. Tell them haters what's up. Hey, stop throwing shade, step your fucking game up. Hey, hey, we got what you need to live life free. No cap, know that what you see ain't what it seems. Tell them haters what's up. Hey, stop throwing shade, step your fucking game up. Hey, hey. Yeah, keep marking indigenous, native, God man, yeah. Hebrew, black American, pride autism, black man, yeah. Watching these part of Christian, I'm spiritual with wild style, yeah. God told me he let me their birth, one ghetto child, yeah. Great single me out from the crowd, y'all true is teaching me, became even more clearer. Preachers and pastors lost their religion, I now see flawless like diamonds. Pieces of the puzzle that was missing, I found done. Till it was longer sinning, Christmas no longer forgiven. No demon, no jinn gon' get me. I see the demon in the gins in your eyes, my lady. No longer wanna be rich by any means. One ghetto got all, one ghetto want and really need. Was born on eating, tribal roots for the corrupted seed. I follow the all-father Jesus God within me. Slavery's a mind state, and ignorance is bliss. Demons take you back on lies, and that's a real shit. Need to live life free. No cap, know that what you see ain't what it seems. Tell them haters what's up. Hey, stop throwing shade, step your fucking game up. Hey, hey, we got what you need to live life free. No cap, know that what you see ain't what it seems. Tell them haters what's up. Hey, stop throwing shade, step your fucking game up. Hey, hey.
Once did I sing, channel an unseen team, magnetic clean, what's enhancement, holy enchantment, know that the spirits be speaking in Spanglish. I rain dance, got that gypsy dust, I am the Sandman. I pervade in dreams, got those lunar inklings. Drone strike at the silence at night, lit up a sec at the alien sight. Polarian flight, nothing else will suffice. Now I pull up the eyes, call me Hermes thrice. Ziggurat hop, let's get you forgot. Intricate plots, got the eyes, Cyclops. Get back and watch my feet or whatnot. I play like a fox with controlling the thighs. Real is over your chi, I surge your head and energy feet. I pick up the page on my soul on the beat. I turns out be resurrected to cease. Original sin, I corrected to sin. You say good and evil, but really they're twins. Really is neither, but neither repent. Came as a serpent, no one at the head. Bring me a genie, cause it can get shifty. Pull out the liquor, the spirit, drink whiskey. You gon' get tipsy while I'ma get busy. Break up the matrix and sit in the city. Swing up and mute, a lion of Judah. I watch her dance, it's ancient as Zula. Don't call her Venus, I'm calling her Shukra. Nirvana, no boss like a
got what you need to live life free.
The clean, what's Manhattan?
Free, no cap, know that what you see ain't what it seems. Tell them haters what's up. Hey, stop throwing shade, step your fucking game up. Hey, hey.
Once did I sing, channel an unseen team, magnetic clean, what's enhancement, holy enchantment, know that the spirits be speaking in Spanglish. I rain dance, got that gypsy dust, I am the Sandman. I pervade in dreams, got those lunar inklings. Drone strike at the silence at night, lit up a sec at the alien sight. Polarian flight, nothing else will suffice. Now I pull up the eyes, call me Hermes thrice. Ziggurat hop, let's get you forgot. Intricate plots, got the eyes, Cyclops. Get back and watch my feet or whatnot. I play like a fox with controlling the thighs. Real is over your chi, I surge your head and energy feed. I pick up the pitch on my soul on the beat. I turns out be resurrected to cease. Original sin, I corrected to sin. You say good and evil, but really they're twins. Really is neither, but neither repent. Came as a serpent, the one at the head. Bring me a genie, cause it can get shifty. Bring me a genie, cause it can get shifty. Pull out the liquor, the spirit, drink whiskey. You gon' get tipsy while I'ma get busy. Break up the matrix and sit in the city. Break up the matrix and sit in the city. Break up the matrix and sit in the city. Break up the matrix and sit in the city. Break up the matrix and sit in the city. Break up the matrix.
All right, we're back in here. What's up, Sounds by Luna 93, 93, 93. All right, we're going to get straight into it. Let's get to the analysis. So let me turn this down just a little bit. All right. So the difference between the Western and the Eastern, or the Vedic, is instead of the moon being in Virgo, the moon is actually in Leo. So let me actually take this screen off so we can see what's going on here. So when the full moon occurred, so this is not necessarily what's going on now. We're talking about when the full moon occurred, which is about 10 hours ago, 10, 11 hours ago at this point. So when the full moon occurred, the moon was in 29 degrees Leo, Vedic. Moon, 29 degrees Leo. In opposition with the sun, which was in 29 degrees Aquarius. So we understand Leo represents the 5th house of the zodiac, while Aquarius represents the 11th house. And of course, we know the 5th house and the 11th house are opposite of one another, as the 11th house will be the house of technology, or cyberspace, and you can say procreation, as well as creativity. Well, now this is the 5th house at this point. These last two are the 5th house. Procreation and creativity, and these are the 11th. Technology, cyberspace. So as we can see, the reason why the 5th house and the 11th house are opposite, because the 5th house mainly, you can say, deals with pleasure. And pleasure gained from creativity. As the 5th house is also the house of romance. Romance requires creativity, which then leads to pleasure, which could of course lead to procreation and children. All this is within the realm of the 5th house. So when we are dealing with the 11th house, now we enter into cyberspace. Now we enter into the energy of rebellion and revolt. So we got rebellion and revolt. These are the energies of Aquarius. Aquarius is all about rebellion, revolt, original thought, or you can say free thinking, to be a free thinker, just to put it simply. So Aquarius is all about being a free thinker, while Leo is all about being creative. So the Leo is more about artistry, while the 11th house deals with independence and freedom. So we just put freedom. So while the 5th house wants pleasure, children, creativity, the 11th house wants no such thing. The 11th house just wants absolute freedom. So because the sun and the moon are in opposition, that means they are lunar charged, once again, dealing with the currency of the moon, because it influences the subconscious mind and not the conscious mind. So that's why it will feel beyond your reach or out of your hands, beyond reach or out of your hands. So if the sun represents our personal power, the moon would then represent our magical ability. So the sun, personal power, whereas the moon represents your magical ability. As all magic will come from a person's subconscious or anima/animus. The anima/animus. This is your magical form. So that means magic is being directed towards the 11th house or cyberspace. So magical currency being directed towards cyberspace. That is the energy of the moon, whereas so let me erase this here so that we don't get confused, because I know I have a lot here. So let me take out all the extra components. So once again, we have the sun in Aquarius, moon, Leo. So this is your magical ability. Directed towards pleasure, artistry, or creativity. And even romance, if you want to take it there. Then your personal power is directed towards cyberspace or technology. So when it comes to the full moon, we're going to gain more personal power journeying into cyberspace. And when it comes to the moon, we're going to gain more lunar currency the more we achieve creative pleasure or creative artistry or romance, depending on how you want to direct that currency. So the more creative, artistic, pleasurable, and romantic you are, it will charge your magical ability or your magical currency. We just call it currency. Your magic currency. Or we just call it mana for the gamers. Your mana will be charged by activating your 5th house. And your personal power is activated by going into the mysteries of cyberspace, which just represents new age thinking. So new age thinking. So anything considered new age would deal with the 11th house. So your personal power charged by new age thinking. Again, law of attraction, so on and so forth. Law of attraction, then occult language. Occult language just represents astrology. Numerology, tarot, Kabbalah, clip off, so on and so forth. Solomonic magic, the magic of Solomon. So like the 72 Goetia, angels, demons, all those things. The numerology associated behind all this is the 29. So let's go into the mysteries of the 29th degree. So if the sun is 29 degrees Aquarius, that means this is Aquarius being influenced by the moon, because this is Aquarius in the third decan. 29 degrees represents the third decan of Aquarius. When Aquarius is in the third decan, the planetary influence is the moon. So we have a combination of the moon and Aquarius when it comes to the sun. When it comes to the moon, 29 degrees Leo. When Leo is in 29 degrees, it is in the third decan. And the planet that influences Leo, when Leo is in the third decan, is Mars, which then gives us a combination of Leo and Mars. So for the sun, we have moon in Aquarius. And for the moon, we have Mars in Leo. So when it comes to your personal power, now that we have more detail, we understand cyberspace, pulling your personal power from cyberspace. But now when we introduce the moon to it, which becomes your magical currency, as we just explained, that means you can also extract magical currency through cyberspace to enhance your personal power, because the moon is integrated. And when we look at the elements of the moon, we understand Leo, once again, being the artistry. And then Mars represents your divine will, or your true will. So because the moon represents your magical currency, once again, your magical currency is charged by your artistry directed towards your divine or true will. So you can say artistry directed towards your thelema, because thelema just represents your true will. Artistry directed towards thelema, which is your true will. So when it comes to the moon, your magical currency is enhanced the more you reflect your true will or your thelema. And when it comes to the sun, your personal power is charged up the more you activate the magical currency within cyberspace or technology, or again, the new age thinking, or the new age currency. Utilizing the new age currency to charge up your magical currency. So your magical currency and the new age thinking are one and the same. And when you direct that towards your true will via artistry, so whatever artist you are, there are many different types of artists of the world. So whatever artist you are directing your artistry towards your true will, incorporating new age thinking or new age philosophy, which will further enhance your personal power. Now, the final level to this is decoding what it means to activate the 29th degree. What's up, Moon Spirit? Haven't seen you around quite some time. Glad to see you here. What's up, Mary? 93, 93, 93. So let us continue to see what the 29th degree holds. So whenever we are dealing with the 29th degree, we know that we are dealing with the energy of the moon. And Mars. So we have a combination of the moon and Mars, otherwise known as the fourth house and the first house. And Mars can sometimes also represent the eighth if we are dealing with the energy of Scorpio. So we'll just put a star next to the eighth house. So mainly we're dealing with the fourth house and the first house. The first house deals with your image or your outer appearance. And the fourth house represents your outer home or your real estate. So whenever we're dealing with the 29th degree, we are directly dealing with the outer home and your outer appearance, because it connects us to the fourth and the first house. Does this affect Leo, Cancer, and Aquarius? This is the whole equation. The whole equation is we were dealing with Aquarius, Leo, and we are dealing with Cancer because we're dealing with the fourth house. So Cancer comes up, Aquarius comes up, and Leo comes up. Because the moon would have been in Leo at the time of the full moon, Vedic wise, which we went through previously. So the moon being in Leo activates the moon. Then it was the sun that was in Aquarius. So once again, sun in Aquarius, then the moon is in Leo. So there's a Leo, there is the Aquarius. Now we're dealing with Cancer because we're dealing with the fourth house via the 29 degrees, via the numerology. So the numerology opens us up to Cancer. Leo and Aquarius are opened up via the astrology. So the numerology takes us to Cancer. The astrology takes us to Leo and Aquarius. So if the 29 degrees deals with your outer appearance and your outer home or your real estate, these are the factors that will be affected, whether positive or negative, all depending on how you control or direct your own currency, because this all represents our own currency. So we have power or control to direct the currency how we choose, whether we want to be constructive or destructive. Sometimes you need to destroy in order to rebuild. So I'm not here to tell you how to direct the force. It all depends on what force is needed. If you need to destroy and rebuild, or do you want to build after already having destroyed? So it depends on where you are in your personal alchemy as to how you will direct these forces. Taking it a step further, because the first house also represents your environment. So if the first house is your environment, then the fourth house is your real estate. That means the environment of your home will be directly affected when it comes to this full moon. It will affect the environment of your home, of your real estate. And I already know that to be true. It's been a lot going on in my own personal space. So I know that to be true from a personal level. So as I am decoding these things, yes, I know that to be absolutely a fact. At this full moon, people have been acting absolutely ridiculous from my personal perspective. However, once we understand, like, okay, this is planetary influence. So we don't direct our energy towards the people, the places, and things. We always keep our mind on the occult so that we can understand how we can navigate the energy instead of trying to confront the energy. So it's not for us to confront the people or the energy. It's for us to understand how we are positioned and how we can direct our forces as the astrologers, the tarot readers, the numerologists, so on and so forth. We also have a hidden factor, because when you add the 2 and the 9, it takes you to the 11, which is the master number. So 2 plus 9 gives us 11, which is the number of the master seer. So 11 is a master number representing the master seer. The master seer is the one who is guided by their intuition or their subconscious. So you can say guided by subconscious. As we like to call spirit or self. And the 11 represents a double sun. So when it is a double sun or a double number 1, it can be written like this with an exponent. So 1 to the power of 1, which is 1 times 1, which takes you right back to the 1. So whenever we are dealing with a double sun, you can say the sun becomes lunar, because 1 plus 1 gives us 2. So even though we stop by the 11, that's not the final answer. The final answer actually is the 2, which we know takes us right back to the moon. So the moon charges that sun, which makes that sun lunar. So it becomes a lunar sun. So because it's a lunar sun, that's why it is guided by the subconscious or the spirit in the self. So that is the sun, the spirit in the self. Then the subconscious represents the moon. So when it comes to the 29th degree, it manifests the energy of the lunar sun, which is being subconsciously guided by your spirit, or as we call yourself, directly affecting your environment of your home. So we see how that works. Also, when it comes to the spring equinox, what's up, AK? We understand Western, the spring equinox, is the energy of Aries, Western. So if you want that analysis, I did that analysis in a previous video. However, if we are dealing with the Vedic then takes us to Pisces, because this will be the time of Pisces, Vedic wise. So the spring equinox would actually fall in Pisces instead of Aries. So that means the spring equinox would actually activate the 12th house instead of the first house. So instead of it activating your divine image that we spoke about in the last video, it would then activate your divination or your psychic ability. So when it comes to the spring equinox, which is March 20th, Vedic wise is going to enhance your divination or your psychic ability, or as we call our spirituality. So on the 20th, expect Pisces to rush into your 12th house, which will enhance the spirituality or your ability to be a universal being. To be a universal being, you must deal with your karma. Our karma just represents our attachments. So once we release our attachments, we become universal because we're not stuck over here or over there. We're able to navigate to where we need to be at the time that we need to be there. As Pisces represents a mutable water. That's water moving in all directions. You can say water moving in all directions. The water, as we know, represents the subconscious. Or the creative world. Creative world. AKA Bira. For the Kabbalists out there, Bira. So if the water or the subconscious is moving in all directions, this is why it would enhance your psychic ability, because it's moving in all directions. So that means it's not just moving in the material realm, it's also moving in the cyber worlds as well as the spiritual worlds, or as we call the astral plane. So there's a lot of energy being directed towards the astrals. So we just call it astral force. So when it comes to the spring equinox, Vedic wise, we will have a charge of astral force. So any goals you may have in the astral plane, this will be the time to direct your energy towards that. So if you are a person that wants to astral project or astral travel, you find value in things like that, this will be the time to begin to set those intentions and create those dream altars. So for those who are interested in those things, this will be a time to create you a dream altar if you don't already have one. And if you already have one, this will be a time to set in motion a new ritual for the spring equinox to enhance your astral abilities and your psychic forces, which will enhance your divination and make you a universal being, because it is dealing with your karma directly. Most karma has to be dealt with in the astral plane. So the deeper you go into the astral plane, the more karma you can dissolve. Karma can be dissolved, but it is not dissolved physically. So this is why it ain't about, doing good deeds. We don't really dissolve karma, just being good people or doing good things. What's up, Merkaba Star? Or Merkbustar. So, excuse me, Merkbustar. Sorry about that. So when it comes to the spring equinox, we will feel an enhancement of astral force. So if you are a person in the astral plane or wishes to enter into the astral plane, the spring equinox will be the time to do so. And once again, because Pisces represents the 12th house, this is all things hidden, with a hidden world. So whenever we call spirit, we are representing the hidden worlds. Or you can say the dark side. We just call it the dark side. Where all the so-called demons, as we like to call them, reside, which is just shadow light. The thing is, you need shadow light to deal with your shadow self. Your shadow self only responds to shadow light, which is produced by the currency of Pisces. So the currency of Pisces will produce more shadow light, which you can then feed to your shadow self, which represents the unconscious mind. The 12th house represents the unconscious mind, or the beast within. So when you feed the beast within shadow light, it's like feeding yourself food. You know, after a full meal, you're full, you know, you're tamed, you're laid back. So in order to tame the beast, it must be fed shadow light, as we all have a shadow self. So just like we have a higher self, we have a lower self, which is our self at the lowest depths. And that's why it's called the beast within, because it's you completely unfiltered. Our ego allows us to operate in this world because our ego can filter out who we really are so that we can, you know, be respectful and civilized. But if you remove that veil, what's left is the shadow self, which feeds on shadow light, which feeds on, as we say, the dark side, which most people are afraid of, but they still feed it. What do I mean? This is why people still watch horror movies. Why do people still watch horror movies? They may be afraid of the dark, but they still watch horror movies. They still stimulate their dark side. They still stimulate their shadow self because it is a part of life. So if we wonder why people do bullshit, why people get into bullshit, it is the shadow self that does that, because it is their lowest self. However, that lowest self can be transformed into your highest self, and that's what the 12th house represents, you being a universal being by dissolving your karma. So your lowest self can become your highest self, just like your highest self can become your lowest self. What do I mean? That's why we see so many people gain knowledge and start to look down on the people that don't have knowledge. So you have some people that get into their highest self or their angelic self, and they become the lowest version of themselves. Then you have people that become, or that access their shadow side, and it becomes the highest version of themselves. Because none of these energies are stagnant. It is all based upon how you choose to direct this currency. Yes, this is the energy of the spring equinox in 2 days. The spring equinox is the energy of Pisces. Vedic wise. Western wise, it would be Aries. It would be the start of Aries. Because Aries season will start at the spring equinox, Western wise. But Vedic, it is the start of the Pisces season, as Vedic astrology is one sign before the Western. So whenever we're dealing with Aries, Western, we're dealing with Pisces, Eastern. So the spring equinox for the Western thinkers is Aries. The spring equinox for the Eastern thinkers is Pisces. So yes, this is a reflection of exactly what's going on right now. So I think y'all get the point here. So we went through the numerology, we went through the astrology, and we went through the spring equinox, which gave us a conclusion of, if you are a person that appreciates the astral plane, this will be the time to access it. And if you want the Western perspective, just look at the previous video. So with that, I bear peace. 93, 93, 93.